Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. My name is Kevin L. Powers. I'm the host for this show. Sometimes I forget that because sometimes I'm doing all kinds of craziness, but that's okay because as long as you're joining me for this show and this episode, it's going to be fine. I'm perfectly fine, and you'll be perfectly fine exploring the movie that we have tonight. Now, some people don't really think this is a great movie, and then other people think it's a cult movie. But tonight we're going to be exploring An American Werewolf in Paris, not London, but Paris. I know that's going to be shocking to some people. And to join me on discussing this movie is the amazing Dave Watkins, a local filmmaker from Georgia who keeps making and breaking indie film, the indie film world with everything he just continues to put out. So, Dave, tell everyone a little bit about what you do and who you are so we can get down to talking about An American Werewolf Paris.
So yes, like you say, I'm a writer, director, and indie movie producer. I've done some web series, The Lumber Baron of Jasper County, which is a comedy, the spinoff of that, which is a horror comedy, The Ghost Killing Squad, and a psychological horror, Herman Jones, which you can see them on Amazon Prime, or you can watch them on YouTube for free. So for the I'm also a movie buff, which is probably more relevant to talking about these movies. And I have and I'm also a physical movie collector. I used to collect VHSs and then DVDs, and then now I'm doing Blu-rays and 4K. So hopefully it stops with that, and they don't go to 8K or whatever they're gonna do next. I don't know.
Uh, that's interesting because we don't talk a whole lot about people who actually still collect physical media. But both you and I both collect physical media. You just have a much more extensive collection than mine because I have not jumped to the 4K yet. I still have everything that's below 4K, and I still own I still own some VHS copies of rare films still now. Which is one of the reasons why we do this show. There are some films that you still can't get over and above a VHS copy. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get around to some of those films.
It's surprisingly the VHS tapes are coming back as a collector's item. The DVDs aren't really worth anything right now, but those VHS tapes, some of them they're sought after now. Unfortunately, I got rid of most of mine, but I wish I kept them now.
I will agree with you on that, only because I got rid of all mine, didn't realize that some of them were actually worth some real money now. And then, of course, now I still own some VHS, and I've actually bought some recent ones that are specialized ones. They're like LPs now. LPs are back,
Yeah.
and people and collectors are buying them motherfuckers. And of course, now VHS, surprisingly, are back for collectors like you and I. So
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's actually going to be collecting An American Werewolf in Paris. So have to ask you, first of all, exactly when, or can you remember your experience watching this film for the first time?
What was funny is when I saw this on the list and I said I'd do it, I thought it said American Werewolf in London. So, so when I was like, okay, cool. It sounds like a go. But then I looked at it a little harder. And I was like, Paris. I'd never actually seen that one because I heard so much bad stuff about it. And I was like, well, maybe I'll take a look at it. So then it was actually kind of hard to find it. Well, I found like a 4K version of it, and it was like a German copy of it. I had to get it imported from I think it was from Germany. But and so like the first language was German, so I had to change it to English and it did put But as far as like that, my reaction to it though, so I heard a lot of bad stuff. Everyone like I think we were talking about it with you and Nate recently, and then you guys were like, "This werewolf CGI is terrible." So I was thinking, okay, well, there's some terrible CGI werewolf in there, but maybe the rest of the movie is like no one they can't even people can't get past the CGI werewolves. But the rest of the movie, like werewolves, you're thinking maybe they'll be in there like like in Lake Placid, you probably got like 2 or 3 minutes of alligator in there. But this thing, so I'm thinking maybe the werewolves be in there like a little bit, and everyone's just like, I can't believe that CGI. But so I'm watching the movie and I'm thinking, the original one is a classic with great atmosphere and it's got a mood to it, and then it's also got like some dark comedy. But it's not. But this one's they try. I think they thought the other one was like I don't know, like a spoof or airplane type of movie because they like went all in on the comedy on this, it was like it's really goofy for some reason, and I mean, when it's like the atmosphere, it's like almost everything about it looked like you're watching like an MTV movie, one of those made for MTV movies. It was just like so. I don't know. There's definitely some fun to be had with this movie, and I did watch it twice. I watched it about a week ago, and then I watched. I couldn't find anything on it, the making of or anything, but then I noticed there was a Blu-ray disc in there with the 4K disc, and I looked on the Blu-ray disc, and they had a behind the scenes like thing. It was very odd one too, but they had a bunch of like just footage of just the behind the scenes, like not even like talking about it, just showing people on set doing stuff. But it was and you saw all the green screen stuff they were doing. By the way, the werewolves look really bad in the movie. So. But they were very ambitious. They had some ideas on things that would have been really cool. That's another thing about the original one. It's like it's very famous for its practical werewolf transformation. Like that's like considered one of the best ones ever, and and it's a really amazing makeup effects. They try to do some makeup stuff in this one, but anyway, so there's the behind the scenes thing, which it makes it look a little more interesting. I watched that, and then I watched it with a different perspective, and I could like have more fun with it. But as far as it being a direct sequel to American Werewolf in London, it does everything possibly wrong it could do. But as far as it just got every bit of it, everything that I was kind of like thinking it could be, it wasn't there. But watching it again and just trying to not think about the other movie, it was a little more fun. But there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of mind-boggling logic in this movie that ties one scene to the next and one action to the next that doesn't make any sense. And there's a lot of like poor creative choices that are just like, what, why,
So I just want so I don't know if you actually know the director, Anthony Waller. So the reason why I put this in the list is as much as I did not like the CGI werewolves in this movie, I love the director. His first film was Mute Witness. If you've never seen Mute Witness, you should go see that. It's an amazing film, and I could see that and it was a cult movie that actually got him noticed, and that's how he got the job to do American Werewolf in Paris. So he got the job to do like probably one of the most sought after sequel jobs there was, and it was a little bit ambitious because he was coming from a very low budget movie that was built on atmosphere, which you mentioned, and it was built on suspense. Which none of that is in An American Werewolf in Paris.
Right. No, I did a little research on the director. And I did notice that the Mute Witness. I've never seen it, but I need to take a look at it. But it kind of looked like he went from that to this, and his career never really picked up in a big way past that. There's a little bit more stuff. I think this kind of like. And looking at the behind the scenes footage, he didn't look like he was having the best time on set. I'm sure it was a very intense thing. I mean, you could just see like the equipment they had out there on the sets and stuff, and what they were doing. And I guess if you're looking at if you're looking at the screen and what's there, but it's like I don't know. They had some really weird things they tried to do, and some of them didn't work too good.
I would be surprised.
Yeah, like for instance, like the dude, the way in the American Werewolf in London, like his friend comes back and haunts him, and only he can see him, which is something they explore more in this movie, but it's so goofy when they do it. But like he's sitting in the restaurant, and they bring out a big platter of fish, and they open it up, and then his friend's head's in there, all green screened in over the fish, and then he steps up through the table, and it's like it just looks really bad. And then I was like, it actually showed him doing the green screen of that in the behind the scenes, It's like, I don't know. There's also some very interesting, like behind the scenes stuff I was reading about how it kept changing directors and writers until it became just a colossal mess that it is,
I wouldn't be surprised. This does happen to be. I don't think he ever did another American film as a director, but I think he may have done a couple as a producer. But the thing is, this was a really maligned film when it came out and tanked the box office and got very bad reviews and picked on because of the CGI werewolf, which in point of fact is not nearly as bad as the CGI transformations in Bad Moon, which came out before this and was made to be like the very first werewolf transformation in CGI. And when you look at Bad Moon, which I actually really enjoyed the movie, it is pretty fucking bad. The choices I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
I haven't seen it. No.
Bad Moon. That was when it came out. They were saying, "Oh, this is the first CGI, all CGI werewolf transformation." So parts of Michael Paré's character changes into a werewolf at different time. The choices those people made were horrible, and I could see where Anthony Waller decided, well, we're just gonna have the werewolf change all at once as a werewolf because what they did in Bad Moon was god awful. And to cut down on budgetary concerns, which is why they don't make a lot of werewolf movies, because werewolves are probably the most expensive thing to do in this day and age.
Yeah, they're the
or back then.
So I mean, if you want to do it right, even like now though, I mean, it's a CGI werewolf's going to look CGI, even if it looks like good CGI. It's not like it still looks like CGI to you, but it's still they're a lot better because here it looks like. These werewolves, it looks like you're like playing a PC like game or something, like for the 80s or what. But it's like, and they're on screen like way too much in this movie. Yeah. But it's like, and they do have some practical ones that look fine, and some like some puppet faces, and some instances. And I mean, they did a lot of makeup effects, but they put a lot of the CGI in there, which kind of killed most of what the work they were trying to do on it I think they were trying to make it fun with the werewolves, and there's werewolf fights, and they just didn't look good. But you can see why they were doing what they did, because they thought that they could. They thought the CGI was there, and they thought it was going to work, and it just everyone's who I don't know it's a 1997 movie, I don't know what my mindset wasn't there at that point. I wasn't thinking CGI. I never really liked it at that point in time. I really liked the 80s stuff. I like the real stuff, like the transformation from the first movie. But I get it, they're trying to go forward and progress and do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do.
Yeah. And a whole bunch of werewolves, because keep in mind there's a bunch in this movie as compared to the original one. And there was no huge fight sequences between werewolves, and it was a very ambitious movie. So I will say that even though the CGI was pretty bad, even for when it came out, I still enjoyed watching the entire fight sequence at the end and the party rave, so to speak, and then it transfer over to the two main, Tom Everett Scott's werewolf and the other werewolf. Can't remember the actor's name. That's stuff that you hadn't seen in a werewolf movie before. Now it's commonplace with all like the underworld movies and everything else. But you gotta think that in 97 they weren't thinking like this. It was still stuff like Bad Moon. You might have one or two werewolves, and that's about it.
Right. Yeah, I guess that, I was able to look past it. Like even now, I was able to look past it. I just accepted the CGI werewolves are there, but I had like bigger issues with some other parts. I think this it's like the script. The script is very flawed in a way that it's it's just stuff just doesn't make sense that they do, and and a lot of that has to do and like just trying to follow why it's so like like for instance the original ones opens with this great atmosphere thing. They go out in the moors. They go to this friggin' like slaughtered lamb pub, and then after everyone's weird there, and they go out there, and then they get attacked by the werewolf while they're hiking. This one, it's like it starts off with some kind of cool shots of Paris, which is a pretty cool jib shot over this house, and you see some gargoyles and stuff, and that's cool. And then you see this really kind of cheesy scene when this guy's trying to get away from a werewolf coming out of a sewer, and he gets pulled into the sewer, and I don't know, but that happens. But then it cuts to the main characters on the train is like Tom Everett Scott's character and his two friends, and for some reason they're part of this like Daredevil tour which is, I guess, going from one place to another and doing like stunts and stuff, but there's no audience for it. They're just doing it and taking notes on it and giving themselves points. So there's no cameras because it's like before like YouTube, and then it's like there's no one else but the three of them, and so the stunt the dudes want to do is go up to the top of the Eiffel Tower with a bungee cord and then jump off, and then I don't know. That was the stunt. But hey,
and get away with it without anyone actually noticing that they were there in the first place. Yes, I saw that too, and I always thought I was like, so who was this for? If they're trying to do it without anyone knowing that they're doing it, because they're supposed to be these stunt daredevils. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
You're correct.
And then I mean, obviously, it was interesting about it. Was watching the behind the scenes thing is they actually shot at the Eiffel Tower, like the real one. So they're actually there in the scene. So they were very excited about being able to shoot there. I would be too. But like Tom Everett Scott was. So then it gets even more like weird then, because then they go up there to do it. And then the guy's putting on all the stuff to the bungee cord. Meanwhile, his two friends are just going to drink some wine. Or before that, all of that, when they're going in there, they sneak in. Like the cops are leaving, and they lock it up, and then they climb up the fucking tower. They climb up the thing, and so now they're up there, and then the friends are like, "He's not really going to do it. This is stupid," and all that. And another thing, when he puts the thing on, and then suddenly the girl comes up, and this is how he's introduced to the love interest.
Yep.
Julie Depley's character was a pretty good performance for what the movie is, but she's all crying, and she's decided she's gonna jump off fucking Eiffel Tower. Apparently, I don't know how she got up there. Oh, yeah, that's right, she's a werewolf, so she could get up there. It makes sense. She just climbed up there, fuck it. But then she's gonna jump, and then she does. I mean, I guess he comes over and tries to stop her, and then she does fall, and then he goes after her with the bungee cord on, but then makes it worse that he forgot to tie the bungee cord up to the side of the thing. So his friends have to grab the bungee cord, and they pull him across the tower, and then he gets almost to the bottom, and he basically saves her and holds her and drops her. But my question is, how did he know exactly how long to have the bungee cord? Because he was like a foot away from the ground.
Well, in reality, he probably would have died if he did.
Then he bounced back up. Here's a plan. Plan B is he bounces back up and then hits his head on top of the tower and then ends up in the hospital. So it's like, what was like after he jumped down, and what was his recovery going to be for that? I mean, to begin with, and that would have killed him just hitting his head on the damn top of the tower after coming back up from the bungee cord jump. But all this is done with like CGI too, with the bungee cord thing. So it's like some crazy looking like green screen CGI when it happens.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, and you've mentioned this before in terms of the comedy aspects. In the original London, it's very subtle comedy, almost dark comedy, whereas in this movie, it's very blatantly comedic. Yeah. And I think that takes you out of the film when it's that blatantly comedic.
Right.
As much as I enjoyed the film when I first saw it at the theater when I was a kid in '97, Jesus, that's a long time ago. I purposely don't rewatch it now for the reason I understand how really conflicted I can be on a film that I used to like as a kid, but no longer as an adult. There are some things like Julie Delpy's actress I really enjoyed because she did the Before Sunrise trilogy. Those films she's amazing in. And then, of course, like you said, she was better than expected in this movie.
Yeah. She definitely took it very serious. And she kind of brought some... The character was kind of cool, though, really, that she was playing. It was like a werewolf who was kind of reluctant to be a werewolf. And yeah, but then like here's the thing about it. So after this happens, he wakes up and he wants to find her, and it becomes like him wanting. They wanted to do this love story, and there's not like a lot of chemistry between the two actors. but it's like he's like smitten in love with her, but this girl who's just trying to kill herself, and then it becomes like there's no talk about like like, hey, what was going on? We need to get you help. It was just like, let's find this girl. Like, she's freaking Cinderella. I love her. You know, it's like, you know, because like there's a shoe thing too. He ends up with a shoe, and then they have to go find a note. And that's another thing. Is like he wakes up in the hospital, and he's like, there was a note, a suicide note, and then they all go back, and there's a montage like to a music video type of thing, them looking for the note and going around, and like there's like a guy walking around like looking at a note, and they think that might be the note, but it's not it, and then they're like looking over people's shoulders, thinking that anything could be the suicide note, and I don't even know how they find it, but they eventually do, and that's how they find her. But then they didn't even have to do that because apparently she's a nurse who works in the hospital he's in, recovering from the neck. I mean the head wound. You know. So I mean that's fairly convenient. You know.
Well, that's an homage to the original film, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Those are very few and far in between. I do think that they did use the fact that Everett Scott's friend who he kills and then comes back as his ghost, and the woman that he kills as well, I think is much better integrated into the story for this film than in London, because I think only Griffin Dunn's character is interesting in the original one, whereas in this one you see Julie Delpy's character's victim showing around as a ghost as well. That's part of her.
Right, and it's her mom. It was supposed to be the mom from American Werewolf in London, apparently, but it only shows her like one time, I think.
Yeah, they do, but and that's one of those things where I like. Okay, so this could have been a good little side story type thing if you had developed it. And like you just brought up the fact that there is multiple different people working on this film other than Anthony Waller, and I didn't know that. So that could have been all part of the conflict from the different people.
But here's kind of how it went down for what I'm to understand. So originally, John Landis, the original director, was going to do it. He turned in a script. They didn't like it. It was probably closer to the original one, but I don't know why they didn't. They wanted something like what they made. They wanted something more exciting with a lot of action in it. And so it kind of kept bouncing back, and then it ended up with like these two writers who did the movie Freaked. You ever see that with Alex Winter? And, Keanu Reeves and stuff. Well, Keanu Reeves plays Dog Boy in it, but it also has Randy Quaid in it and a bunch of other people like William Sadler. But there's Tim Burns and Tom Stern, but Tom Stern was originally going to direct it, and they wrote the script kind of like what it is, but without the illogical stuff. Like the Paris Tower thing wasn't in there. It was like the Tom Everett Scott's character wasn't like part of a daredevil group. That he was like somebody who the first person who dies in the opening scene. He was his uncle, and he comes back to find out what happened with that. And then he finds Julie Delpy's character, who's actually a nurse for him, or there. So it kind of like some similar stuff happens, but it's more logical. There's not all this like, and there's not all this like. I guess it is kind of a '90s MTV vibe going on, and maybe that's what they wanted. But so they did that script, and then they told Tom, Tom Stern. They told him, when they got the script, they're like, we love the script, but we want to up the budget, and we don't feel comfortable with you directing anymore since the budget's bigger. So then they brought in the director from Demolition Man. I don't
wow!
Yeah, I don't know his name. I can't pronounce it anyway. I think it's like Italian or something, but they brought him in, and he's the one that made all the some of the weird things. It seems like from what I read, it sounds like he added all the weirdness to it, like the bungee cord jumping and all that. And then then eventually like he had to leave the project, and then it went to Waller, which is funny because I don't see much difference between him and Tom Stern really, at that point. But I guess it'd been so long in between that it was like, okay, we're gonna hire him, but he's only done this other movie, So he ended up just kind of taking the script that was handed to him and doing it. It's not like he wasn't like, as far as I could tell, it doesn't look like he did the weird things, like added the weird things in there, like trying to connect it to the other one very weirdly, things of that nature. But that's the way it looks like it went down anyway.
Well, that makes much more sense now because I could never understand how he could go from Mute Witness to the American Werewolf in Paris because they were so different. Um,
Yeah,
and I've seen Mute Witness a lot, probably 10 or 12 times. I just wish that he had been given more opportunities here in the U.S. to do bigger films, but he didn't, or he decided to stay. Like there's a lot of foreign directors I absolutely love who just don't work here in America till they do one studio
yeah.
film and then they go away.
It was probably like a really bad. I don't see anything about it, but just like looking at the way he looks on set, I'm sure he was exhausting. I thought it was exhausting, and then he probably didn't have a lot of control over what was going on, more than likely. So I
Now I
don't
need to
know.
go back and watch that behind the scenes thing. Now it gives me something else to watch because I don't have the Blu-ray version of this movie.
I'm not sure how available it is, but because I couldn't, I mean, it might be online somewhere. I don't know, but I couldn't. I mean, I was looking around just trying to find a lot of written stuff, but nothing that was. I mean, a lot of this could possibly be speculation of people saying. I mean, some of the stuff I can confirm because I saw it in the documentary part of it,
Yeah.
but not necessarily all of it. But it looks like most of it's probably true. When, but as far as like, yeah, what we're talking about with what they did with like Griffin Dunn's character, and then they really like went really far and with I guess they're like what happens when the werewolf kills somebody, they come back, their friends come back and talk to them. In there's some weird rules to this thing. Like in the first one, it's like Griffin Dunn's not killed by him; he's killed by the other werewolf, right? And
Yes. He's killed by the other werewolf.
but then he shows up, but then he's bitten by the werewolf. So I guess he's carrying. Then I don't know. But in this one, so Tom Everett Scott's character is bitten by the villain character, which you don't find out until later on. Spoiler, but it's kind of lame spoiler anyway. But I read that was something else. The original script was supposed to be she bit him, so you'd have to actually deal with that at the end instead of letting him off the hook, like they do in this movie. But but they yeah, so like yeah, so yeah, so his friend is killed by the other werewolf. Yeah, but then he's bitten by the same werewolf, so I guess it kind of so then his friend appears to him and talks to him, and then but then he kills which that the girl that he picks up. It's pretty funny performance actually, like by Julie Bowen from Modern Family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When I
she's
watched it, I realized it was her. I was like, oh wait, she was in this movie. Holy shit.
yeah. I saw her in the opening credits when it's coming on, and I recognize her from Lost too. She played Jack's wife, and everyone hated her in that. But so, but she's great in Modern Family. She's really funny in this. But like he's at a restaurant and he's turning into a werewolf, and he asks for this bloody steak, and he's just like in there eating the steak, and she comes in, he's got steak all over his face. And for some reason he comes up and like looks up her dress, and then she's impressed that he's American. So he's like, at first I thought maybe she was a werewolf too, the way she was acting. But she wasn't, and he ended up going out and having fun, and then he turns into a werewolf and kills her eventually. So and then she comes back, and the same sort of thing as a ghoul, and as the movie goes on, they get more and more disgusting looking. But she's mad at him, and she's like trying, and apparently the other werewolves can see the ghouls because she's like yelling towards them, and I think that alerts them to where they are because he could see like Julie Depley's mom, so that means the other werewolves could see everyone's werewolf ghouls. So
I don't know. They don't. The other werewolves in the film don't seem to have ghouls around them, and they kill lots of people. That's the thing about if you're a werewolf in these movies and you kill a lot of people, you should be covered with dead people around you at all times.
Right. It must be. Yeah. I mean, there's not like a lot of I don't. I mean, they try to go more into the mythology with it, but then it adds even more questions. It's like that's show one other goal. One of the guys who was at the party when he shows up kind of in the morgue, and his head like pops out and he says something. It looks really cheesy, but he's one of the other people that die. That's the only other ghoul you see, I think, other than the main two and then the mom. But they are in it more than the other movie.
Yeah.
There's so much about this though. It's just and it's kind of like the first time I was watching it, my head was hurting so much, just like because I was so like disappointed by the script and like the illogical stuff. And then like once I got through that and I watched it the second time, I was actually kind of thinking it's so ridiculous. The illogical stuff so ridiculous is actually kind of funny, you know? Because it's like I guess another scene I gotta talk about, and this is probably the worst like humor. Like when the girl's like suicidal to begin with, then they start saying, "Hey, you need to go out on a date with her, like a date." And so they have this date montage when he goes out with her, and then he's got the friends like give him like condoms, like a bunch of them for some reason, and then it's like, and they're like, "Yeah, you need to go like go get with her, this like suicidal werewolf girl." And then she's having dinner like lunch with him, and he's got the condom in his pocket, and then he reaches in his pocket and the condoms like pop out. It's like some American Pie like stuff going on, and then and she's like questioning him like what's going on with the condoms, and then he's like, oh, this chewing gum, and he puts it in his mouth and he starts chewing it, and she asks him to blow a bubble, and he blows a freaking condom bubble. It was like, what is going on? And how
When I rewatched it, I saw the same thing. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't remember this happening when I originally saw this movie, and this is just so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, what? I mean, that's like some. I mean, I don't know. It is like something from like a very like broad comedy, which it could be funny, but it's not funny in this movie because it's so out of place, and it basically takes this movie needs to be a little more grounded in reality than it is for it to work better.
Yeah. But if what you say is correct, and the director of Demolition Man did have his hand in rewriting it, I can see that being scenes that he added, because there are just as dumb scenes in Demolition Man as there are in this movie, and you're now making it a little clearer to me why there are so many weird scenes in this movie now.
Right. Actually, I like Demolition Man. I thought it worked in that movie, but whatever was going on with this, I don't know. I mean, I think if he had directed it himself, it may have worked better. He might have been able to make it work better, but I don't know.
Well, you also had Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes in Demolition Man.
Right. Yeah.
With the early version of Sandra Bullock in there.
Right. Yeah.
So this one you had Julie Delpy, who's French, and you had Tom Everett Scott, who I don't think anyone knew who the hell he was when he made this movie.
Well, he did that thing you do, and I think his career kind of took. I mean, he's still working, but he
heck
kinda,
yeah,
yeah, but he kind
great
of took
actor
it.
now.
Yeah, but he kind of went from like that thing you do, and he was kind of blowing up, and then he did this movie, and then it just kind of flatlined for a little bit,
Yeah, he was in several shows that are really good, and I think he finally found his niche.
Yeah.
But I don't think horror was supposed to be his niche, or this type of horror comedy.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of I don't think it's necessarily his fault with the performance, but there's some goofy stuff going on
Yeah.
with his some of his facial expressions and stuff. There's like the scene where she's in the bed with him and he's just like making this werewolf face thing, and it's just it's just like well, that's not.
I will say this. When I first saw this movie, after me being a guy who loved Anthony Waller's first film, Mute Witness, and I couldn't wait to see his next film, I really did enjoy the movie a lot. Plus, I was a huge fan of American Werewolf London. They finally made a sequel to it in spirit only. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. And I was a werewolf fan, and they weren't making enough werewolf movies at the time. Hence why I know about movies called Bad Moon, and you don't. And I saw Bad Moon at the theater as well.
It sounds familiar though, Bad Moon. I just think I missed it. It's probably too bad.
No. A lot of people missed it. The thing is, it's a really great movie and thankfully they don't use the CGI werewolf that much.
Right.
In fact, you don't actually see the CGI werewolf until close to the very end, when he does the transformation. And you're because it's a really good movie about a kid and his dog. who anyone out there who's familiar with the movie Bad Moon, it's based on the movie called Red, which is from the perspective of a dog. So the dog is one of the main characters in the movie, and the kid who's the dog's owner.
What kind of dog is it in the movie?
I can't remember anymore. I'm not much of a dog species
Yeah,
kind
I
of
got you.
guy.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you really. But the thing is that the dog is the person or the character that saves everyone in the movie from the werewolf. There's a big little fight between the werewolf and the dog at the very end. It's very clever. It's very well done. It gets talked about because of the CGI werewolf at the end, because they were making a big deal of it at the time when it came out that they were doing the first all CGI werewolf transformation. Doesn't show up till the end. It doesn't ruin the movie. The movie is actually really damn good. And of course, this one, being a sequel to one of the greatest werewolf transformations films ever, got criticized for the werewolf transformation. But you try and find some of those good things in movies like this. I found Julie Delpy, Tom Everett Scott. I liked him in That Thing You Do. I thought that was a great movie. And so I've actually seen him in lots of other things where he really has come out and he has done some amazing performances. But it did kind of kill my guy Anthony Waller's career.
Yeah.
This movie, which is really sad for me. Until now, I didn't realize he'd actually directed some other movies, but some of those movies I've never even heard of. After
Right. Yeah.
I think
yeah.
and I watch a lot of foreign films. And it's a shame that I have not been able to catch up with what he has done since American Werewolf in Paris. Because I'm sure that once he got past the experience of having made this film, he probably went back to doing really great work. And I just think that, American Werewolf in Paris was one of these films that, was, as you say, was they gave more money to it, had to hire a much more profound director to direct it. It was high profile and it just did horribly.
So in comparison to the first movie, the budget on this one in 1997 was 25 million. The first one was 5.6 or so million. So it was a big difference in budget. I don't know how much that translates to today. I was trying to figure that out earlier, but I would think it would be significant. 25 million.
Just think of it in this day and age, most horror films in this day and age cost $25 million to make.
Yeah,
they're not spending that type of money on these movies. They're not spending $25 million to make a Saw movie, and the new Saw movies grosses, $100 million, $200 million. They're not spending that money, but they're spending on a sequel to American Werewolf in London, which is one of the greatest werewolf movies ever made, and it's considered that by not only people who like horror, but people in general because of all the award accolades it's gotten for the werewolf transformations. So you pay a little bit more for that.
I did say, yeah. One thing about this movie, if you can get past the atmosphere not being right, it does have a lot of cool scenes that take place in Paris, outside in Paris locations. So I mean, there is that, and there's some very ambitious type of camera moves in this scene. Like there's like a scene where after the condom scene and she runs out on him, and well, I guess some other guy tries to get up and defend her, and then she ends up throwing him across the thing. But so he chases her out of the thing, and there's this dolly shot where she gets on a bike and she's going forward with it, and he's like running behind her trying to catch up with her. It's a pretty cool shot. There's like some cool stuff like that. There's definitely some thought out things going on in this movie, but it just was wrong for the movie in general, because if it was a different type of movie, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some cool stuff in there as far as like if you like it's very bright though. The movie is very bright in general. There's no like, I think I was reading about the original writers. Were talking about how they visited Paris and they saw some like catacombs, like underground catacombs, and they were very like dreary and scary, and that's what they wrote like the some of the movie to take place in, and they were hoping that would be the atmosphere thing. But then I guess some reason they shot them in some kind of caves. It's probably they probably made them. If they shot in some real catacombs, that would have been like pretty cool.
I could see that if they had done that the ending sequence of that last rave when they're going through all the little catacombs, that would have been really fucking cool. Added a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like probably the reason why they couldn't do it or didn't is because of the CGI werewolves, because they had to shoot it green screen.
Uh,
Uh, but at the same time, it's like you don't need CGI werewolves if you got cool catacombs. You could have the werewolves in the darkness, and
well, that's the one thing I think we both agree on. If they had shown less of the werewolves and had a lot more in darkness, so you don't see everything as much, I think it would have been much more successful, despite the uneven comedy aspects of the film.
yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess if you just have, I mean, like when I watched it like last night, the second time I watched it, I watched it with a different type of mindset, I did enjoy it more. I did like I did fast forward through some of the ridiculous scenes, like the comedy restaurant scene and stuff, but as far as like some of the stuff is pretty cool, in the movie.
Yeah. And I would love to see how someone would approach it in this day and age, now that we have seen plenty of great CGI werewolf transformations, and you could do so much more with this type of story. I would think that this would be a really interesting sequel, remake, reboot, whatever the hell they want to call it in this day and age, of An American Werewolf in London. London.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like if they did it now too, they have a better sensibility about what worked in the older movies. Like I think in 1997, and listening to their interviews, like some of the cast seemed to think that the old movie was like out of date, and then they were, as far as like not having enough action in it and not enough werewolves. But at the same time, I think it's like you could still, like, to me the best way for this movie to work would be you start off with like some kind of kill at the beginning, and then you have some build up, and then later on do some action stuff that works. But I mean, it could still, like, you just got to maintain the atmosphere with the movie, and for this type of movie to work. I think if the right person made it, like they are making movies like this now, like like they're not they're not making really jokey movies anymore. If Bloomhouse did it, or some other production company who takes stuff like serious for when they're making the movies. I mean, I like comedy in the movie too. Like the original movie had comedy in it, but
Yeah. But it was dark. I
yeah,
consider that kind of a dark comedy, because some people thought it was funny, some people didn't, but it wasn't like laugh out loud comedy. It was very humorous, and that's funny because these are two Americans who are in London who should not be in London. That's funny because they're doing stupid shit. You know,
right, yeah,
but that's the thing. The American, or Paris, does a lot of stuff that's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be a joke, and it's not.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, and I think that's the difference between the two. And I think that's one of the things that John Landis has always been able to do well. Because in my opinion, I know some people are going to kill me when I say this about John Landis. When he's not trying to be funny, he's funny. When he tries to be funny, it's when it's not funny.
yeah.
uh, I'm not.
Yeah. I like John Landis' movies generally. Yeah,
A
but
lot of stuff that he's done, in my opinion, sometimes doesn't work because he tries to be funny. I don't.
yeah,
I don't think London was designed to be a flat, like laugh out loud funny. Like what was it? Animal House he did. I'm not getting confused. Um, and then the Innocent Blood, his
yeah.
werewolf vampire movie, which I thought, I've seen it 3 times. It's supposed to be that same type of humor. I don't think it works.
I hadn't seen that in a long time. I think I remember when I did see it before, I liked it okay, but I was actually thinking about rewatching. I bet it doesn't hold up as good. It has a lot of cool character actors in it, though.
It does have a lot of good character actors in it, and I saw
No,
it.
which she spends a lot of, like, the main vampire spends a lot of time nude, from what I remember. It's sort of like it's yeah. I think that was like kind of the drawing thing to it, but it had some good. It was it like Anthony LaPaglia and Robert Loggia's in it. It's like because it's like vampires versus the mob. It's like
Yeah,
Louise Guzman's in it,
that's the thing, is the concept is brilliant, but the humor in it is kind of off-putting for me. And I've
Yeah,
watched it several times, and I don't get it as much as I get London. I've seen London a lot of times. I grew up watching London. Same as The Howling, since they came out in the same fucking year. I grew up watching those back to back so many times. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I agree. Though it doesn't seem. I mean, I never really considered it a comedy myself. I always thought it had some dark humor in it.
That's how
But
I
he,
saw it.
but if you look on the Wikipedia page, it actually listed as a comedy horror. But
It does.
I think that's kind of like I don't know. I mean, sometimes people don't. I mean, it means like dark comedy. Sometimes people don't understand the difference. You know,
Yeah.
they think they're gonna watch it and it's gonna be like a spoof or something. You know.
Yeah. And that's when that I mean, in London takes itself seriously. Like people get killed in that damn movie, and the I think it's more.
Well, people were killed in Paris too.
Yeah, people look. But to be honest with you, the only one that you semi think is a really like a serious kill is the very first one when the guy gets dragged into a fucking sewer, which just seems out of place.
But he actually doesn't die. He just gets his legs eaten off, and he's still alive later. But then he dies later on in the movie. You know,
Yeah, he dies later on.
yeah. I guess there's another thing I was thinking about with this movie. Like he's got these two friends, and one of them dies and comes back as the ghoul, but the other one is like actually I kind of like the character, and I kind of like the energy the guy was putting out. But they kind of get sidelined. Like he's pretty strong in the first like 30 minutes, and then at one point they go to this rave club, and then they're like, "Hey, we should go check on her back at her house." And he's like, "Okay, I'll go." And he goes, and then he gets caught and imprisoned, and then he escapes, and then he gets knocked on the head and imprisoned again. And he's like constantly getting tied up and escaping like the rest of the movie. It's like no character development. It's just like tied up, escape, get him again. You know.
A character they don't know what to do with is what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
You know,
It's like almost like they should have just killed him off if they're going to do all that, you know?
or just had. I think it would have been weird if it was just two friends doing Daredevil, which is
Yeah,
why I did three. But you're right. They don't know what to do with him since they don't kill him off, and so he
yeah,
gets captured. Really, he escapes captured.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think to me, it's like it would. I don't even know. I mean, I think the whole thing would have been more interesting if he like, kept like playing in the scenes, you know, instead of like getting knocked out. And at one point, they had him like tied to a cross. I don't know. They're trying to symbolize something, and then
That's
he
right at the end.
breaks the
He's tied to a
cross and
cross.
he's like running around with it on his back, you know. So.
Oh, I've forgotten about the cross thing. Oh my, you're right. He runs around at the end with the
But
cross.
it's like, why don't they kill him? You know, it's like we're just gonna kill everybody but him. You know, just because we can use him as some kind of leverage or something. I don't know.
He,
That's another thing that's like weird though. Like the main bad guy is just like he's just way over the top. Like and like just I don't know. He just doesn't. I mean, like a lot of the stuff they do is just doesn't make any sense. It's like it makes sense. I guess they're werewolves, so they want to lure some people in
mhm.
to this club, and they move it from one place to the other. And but it just seems like he's kind of getting. I don't know. There's just like no depth to it. He's just like an evil bastard, you know.
Well, you bring that up, and my one of my after rewatching it, one of my main problems with the movie is, you're right. Why do this pack of werewolves lure these innocent people into a rave to slaughter them, but not like eat them, save them for dinner later? So like we're just gonna put a whole bunch of people together in the rave,
Yeah,
just just for the fuck of
yeah,
it, and
right.
not give the authorities and everyone the idea that there's a pack of people going around killing a bunch of other people that go to
Yeah,
rave parties. It doesn't make much sense, but
yeah. Yeah, and also the cops again, like in a lot of other movies, but they're there's like this guy keeps like being at these murder scenes, and then they get him, and then he gets away. You know what I'm saying? It's like the first time maybe, but then the next time they get him, he's actually at the murder scene with the dead dog, and then they bring him in and they have him in a morgue. And what they have in the morgue to identify a body, I don't know, but instead of arresting him, they let him in there to talk to the zombies for a few minutes, which they don't even know are there, and then he hides in one of the morgue drawers, and I guess they're too dumb to figure it out, you know. So then he gets away.
well, we can keep talking about the craziness of this movie
Yeah,
forever, probably.
but
Hopefully
it's
not though.
pretty. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just so much stuff. It's just so hilarious just thinking about the writing on it, and it's just like, what?
Well, And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to speak about this movie in particular instead of doing like London. This one is the more infamous of the two, in kind of the worst ways possible. And it's always good to talk about movies that most general audiences either loathe or just have completely ignored due to, like you did, bad press, bad hearsay about the movie, and so you never saw it until recently, whereas I
Yeah.
saw it was originally released.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't really want to talk about it that bad. It was just like, because I was hoping it would be a better movie when everybody was saying, and I was like, oh man, I mean, I'd rather do some fanfare for London than talk bad about this movie, but it is what it is,
And the thing is, our conversation, you just brought up a lot of stuff that I never knew, background, and that's the thing that a lot of people who are going to be listening to this don't know. They don't know that multiple different people were hired to come in and make this movie, and some of the faults of the movie could be based on the fact that so many different people had a hand in making it. And then Anthony Waller, who was coming off of a critical favorite, Mute Witness, got saddled with a script and stuff already in place. He was a Mr. Fix-It, sort of like Josh Whedon on Zack Snyder's Justice League. He's saddled with stuff that's already there, and unfortunately,
he got so boned on that.
You get stuck with it, and then your nails put on it, and it's always forever associated with you. And it's good to talk about these films because when people watch them, we're giving them a better, or at least another perspective of looking at these type of films. Especially for ones like this film, who it's a sequel that has completely been ignored and is not so much a cult movie at all. It's one of those films that has almost completely been forgotten, except for maybe the fact that, people know that there was a sequel to London. They just don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But any final words about this movie that we haven't already discussed?
I don't think I have anything else. I guess I think it is a little bit fun. I would think that you'll be disappointed if you think it's going to be I think if you go into it ready for the bright lighting and not the atmosphere from the first movie, you might enjoy it more. and be okay with CGI werewolves because they're coming.
Well, that's the thing, and if a lot of audience members are like you and they've never seen the movie until now, they have a kind of like a hindsight on the ideal of what CGI werewolves are now, in regards to 97 when they were still relatively brand new. You have to keep in mind part of that when you're watching the movie because they're not the best they could be. They just didn't have the technology to make them like werewolves nowadays. They didn't have it, and it was still in its infancy. It is interesting to watch the movie and its chaos that has ensued. This is not the worst film like this. There are plenty of other ones out there. Like
definitely had a high budget.
It had a high budget, so you would think that the people behind it had some type of what do you call it? Faith in the movie. They didn't have any faith in the movie when they probably saw it. They put it out at the theater. It did horrible at the box office. And it is forever remembered or not remembered, sort of like a whole bunch of other sequels out there that no one seems to remember. Most horror films have some type of sequel. There's a lot that people just don't realize ever existed. But for those of you listening, the American Werewolf in London, or American Werewolf in Paris, is a film that's been out for a very long time, 97. If you don't know about the film, please check it out. If for no other reason that you are seeing this film for the very first time, I want to thank everyone who came out here and listened. I want to thank Dave Watkins for indulging me on my conversation in regards to American Werewolf in Paris, even though he was watching it for the very first time and heard a lot of bad things about it. I want to thank you all for joining me on this version of Conversations in Horror. Please make sure to check out us on all social media and check out previous episodes of other films. We have a lot in store for you from here on out, so please make sure to subscribe and become a Patreon of us. Thank you so much and have a good evening. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.